The sky above Earth's capital city turned dark, not because of clouds, but because something massive blocked the sun. People looked up, eyes wide, as a golden alien ship hovered silently over the government tower. It had no engines, no wings, and no sound. It just floated there, huge. Glowing and dangerous, inside the tower, the world leaders had gathered. Military, politicians, and scientists all stood around a long table, but no one spoke. They were all waiting for her. The untouchable alien diplomat from the Zarkali Empire, her name was Varea. She was known across galaxies as proud, cold, and powerful. She came from a species that had destroyed 3 planets in 1 year just to make a point. Now she had come to Earth not as a friend, not as an enemy, but as something in between. Suddenly the tower shook lightly. The giant ship had landed on the platform above. Guards in black armor stepped out first, surrounding the doors, and then she appeared. Varea was tall, much taller than a human woman. Her skin shimmered like polished silver. Her golden robes flowed as she walked, each step calm and firm. Her eyes were violet, and they looked at no one, not even Earth's president. She entered the meeting room like a queen walking through a market. Everyone stood, but she didn't nod or speak. She simply sat at the tables. And, as if it was already hers, the guards stayed behind her like statues. For a long moment, no one said anything. Then the president smiled politely and said, "Ambassador Varea, we welcome you to Earth." Varea did not smile back. Instead, she raised one hand, said, "Speak only what matters." That single sentence silenced the whole room. It wasn't just her words, but how she said them, cold and sharp. She looked around unimpressed. "These talks are not to make peace," she said. "They are to decide what Earth will give to the Zarkali Empire." A wave of shock passed through the humans. They had expected negotiation, not commands. Some of the diplomats exchanged nervous glances. Others looked down at their notes, unsure what to say, but one man stood up. His name was Captain Jace Marlowe. He wasn't a diplomat, not even a politician. He was a decorated space officer who had been invited as a guest. Jace stepped forward and looked directly at her. "You come to Earth demanding gifts," he said. "But you offer nothing in return." The room froze. People stared at him like he had just insulted a goddess. Varea finally turned her head toward him. "Slowly you speak boldly," she said, "for someone so short-lived." A few of her guards chuckled quietly, but Jace didn't smile. "We may live short lives," he replied, "but we don't kneel for survival." Vera stood now, her robes flowing like fire. She stepped close to Jace, so close. He could see the strange glow under her skin. "You stand before the Speaker of Worlds," she whispered, "and you dare lecture me on pride?" Jace didn't move. His voice stayed calm. "I stand before someone who forgot what respect means." The air around them felt heavier. Varea's violet eyes narrowed. For a moment, it looked like she would order his death, but then, to everyone's surprise, she gave a faint smile. "Interesting," she said softly. "Perhaps Earth still has some use." Then she turned and sat back down. Her smile faded. But her interest didn't, from that moment. She watched Jace more than anyone else in the room. The meeting continued with careful words and tense talks. But everyone knew something had changed. The untouchable had been challenged, and she hadn't crushed the challenger that night. As her ship floated above Earth's skies like a golden moon, Varea stood alone in her chambers. Looking down at the lights of the human world, she touched her lips, remembering the strange feeling. Not fear, not anger, but curiosity. A human had looked her in the eyes and dared to question her. That had never happened before. She whispered his name to herself, Jace. *. The next morning. Sunlight broke through the clouds over Earth's capital, but the golden Zarkali ship still blocked a part of the sky. It floated there like a warning, beautiful, silent, and full of secrets, inside the human council chamber. The tension had not faded. Ambassador Vera sat at the head of the table again. But this time, she smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't kind. It was the kind of smile that made soldiers check their weapons. She looked around at the Earth leaders and said, "Let us speak plainly now." Everyone leaned in, unsure of what was coming next. "I am here to collect Earth's offering," she continued. "Water, fuel, metals, and your fastest ships." The council members exchanged worried glances. It was too much. Far too much. President Nair cleared her throat. Ambassador Vera, your request is... Extreme Vera raised a perfect silver eyebrow. She replied, it is not a request. Her voice was sweet but sharp like ice. I am not asking. I am expecting. Captain Jace stood again, arms crossed, was not part of the council. But everyone turned when he spoke. What if we say no? He asked boldly. Vera turned her violet eyes to him again. She smiled wider this time. Then your planet shall kneel, she whispered. Gasps filled the room. One diplomat almost dropped his glass. You dare to threaten Earth? Jace said, his tone growing cold. Vera leaned forward slowly. I do not threaten, she said. I predict. Then she pressed a small device on her wrist. The screen on the wall changed, showing images from distant galaxies, Zarkali warships, destroying a city, a green moon exploding in space, a planet's crust being pulled apart by gravitational weapons. These are not stories, Bria said. These are lessons. Silence gripped the room like a heavy chain, even the bravest. Generals didn't speak. Only Jace met her eyes. Unshaken, you destroyed those planets for saying no. He asked. Vera tilted her head slightly. They did not understand respect. But you're here on a peace mission, President Nair said, trying to stay calm. Vera chuckled. Peace comes after obedience. Just then, one of the human scientists whispered something into the president's ear. She turned pale. He had confirmed that the energy readings from the alien ship showed enough power to wipe out cities in minutes. Her threat was not empty. Earth was one wrong word away from war, but Jace wasn't done. He stepped closer, walking slowly around the table. You know what I see? He said, voice steady. I see someone hiding behind power. Vera's smile faded slightly. Her guards moved, but she raised her hand to stop them. Go on, human, she said. Curious now. You've never earned respect, Jace continued. You forced it. Fear and respect are not the same, he added. Real leaders inspire trust, not terror. Vera stood again, her robe shimmering like moving fire. She walked around the table, step by step, until she stood face with him. You speak like a child who believes in fairy tales, she said quietly. Jace didn't blink. You speak like a queen who's afraid her crown is cracking. That line hit something deep for a second. Eyes narrowed with emotions. Something between anger and doubt. She turned away, but not before whispering, You are bold, Captain Jace, and boldness is often fatal. Later that day, the news spread fast. Vera had given Earth 3 days to accept her demands, 3 days to surrender what they couldn't afford or face Zarkali correction. Whatever that meant, some humans panicked. Others prepared, but Jace wasn't afraid. He began researching, digging through old Zarkali customs and traditions. There had to be a way to stop her without war, and then he found it. A small, ancient clause in the Zarkali honor code. It allowed any being to challenge a diplomat's decision. But only through a personal trial, a duel of honor. It was rare. Almost forgotten, but still valid under Zarkali law. Jace looked at the words and smiled for the first time in days. Maybe Vera thought she was untouchable, but she had never met a human like him. And he wasn't about to let Earth bow to anyone. It was Earth's third sunrise since the alien diplomat arrived. 3 long days of threats covered in smiles. 3 long days of silence from Earthside. But now the council chamber was full again. This time, the air was heavier, like the planet itself was holding its breath. Ambassador Virea sat with her back straight and her hands folded. Her golden robes flowed around her like waves of sunlight. But her eyes were sharp, watching every move. She had given Earth 3 days to obey. And now she waited for them to surrender. President Nair stood slowly, her voice trembling. We respectfully ask for more time. Vera raised one eyebrow. Time changes nothing, she replied. Only submission does. Some members of the council were ready to accept her demands. They whispered of survival, of avoiding war. But one man was not silent. Captain Jace Marlowe stepped forward again. This time, he didn't speak softly. He didn't ask, He declared, "Earth refuses." Everyone turned to him in shock. Vera leaned back slightly, as if she had misheard. "What? Did you say?" she asked, her voice low and cold. "I said no," Jace repeated. "You may scare others, but not me." Vera stood. Her guard stepped forward. She held up her hand to stop them. Her eyes were locked on Jace like a laser. "You dare insult a royal of Zarkali in front of her court?" Jace didn't blink. "I do," he said, "and I challenge you by the laws of your people." Now even the guards froze. Gasps echoed across the room. "You challenge me," Vera repeated, her voice heavy with disbelief. "I've read your honor code," Jace replied. "Public demand can be countered by a trial of honor." Her eyes narrowed. "That law is ancient," she whispered.
No one has used it in centuries, but it still stands," he said, "and you know it."
For a full 10 seconds, no one moved. Vera's expression slowly changed from cold anger to hidden surprise. Then, at last, she gave a small nod. "So be it," she said. "Your death will be remembered." "No," Jace replied calmly. "Your defeat will be—" The council exploded with noiser, humans, fears, protests, but the challenge had been made and accepted. Zarkeli law would not allow her to back down now. This was no longer a meeting, it was war. Wrapped in tradition, later that day, Earth's media erupted. One headline echoed louder than the rest. "A human says no to the untouchable." People around the globe watched with awe, fear, and pride. A single man had stood up to a galactic power. Inside her private chamber aboard the floating ship, Vera stood before a mirror of liquid light. She looked at her reflection with strange silence. "Why him?" she whispered. "Why now?" She had crushed worlds, ended governments, broken kings, but this human. He did not kneel, and now he would face her not with armies, but with honor. Part of her burned with rage. Another part felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. The next morning, Earth's skies were clear. A platform had been prepared in low orbit, a traditional space ring used for peaceful duels. Jace wore no armor, no shield, only a light spacesuit and calm eyes. Vera arrived in ceremonial robes, her staff glowing with energy. As they stood across from each other, no one spoke. The duel would begin when the old signal sounded a single chime in the void of space. It echoed. The fight began. Vera moved like wind and lightning quick, elegant, deadly, but Jace didn't fight with power. He fought with rhythm. He dodged, countered, and moved with patience. She attacked again and again, but he didn't break. "You fight like no human I've met," she said, while circling him. Jace replied, "That's because I don't fight to win." She narrowed her eyes. "Then what do you fight for?" He answered, "To remind you that fear isn't respect." That moment slowed time for her. No one had ever said that to her face. Not on her world, not in her empire. For the first time, Aria hesitated. And in that hesitation, Jace disarmed her not by force, but by understanding. He stepped back instead of striking. She stood stunned, breathless, and she knew, in that second, he had already won. Asterisk above Earth. Floating silently in the edge of orbit, a ring-shaped platform circled the planet. It was built long ago for peace talks, never used for battle, but today, it had become a sacred arena. The duel between Captain Jace Marlowe and Ambassador Virea would be witnessed by both Earth and the stars. This was no war, no bloodbath. It was a fight of honor, skill, and truth, and it would decide the future of two worlds. The Sky Garden, as it was called, was covered in glowing vines and soft energy fields. No weapons were allowed, only movement, control, and mind. Jace stood on one side of the platform, calm, focused. His suit was basic, nothing but black polymer and oxygen wiring. No helmet, just a gravity field to keep his feet grounded. His breath was steady. Across from him, Vera stood still as a statue. Her robe was gone. She now wore a bodysuit of smooth silver, woven with lines of living crystal. Her hair floated gently in zero gravity, but her eyes burned. A soft bell echoed in the distance, clear and pure. The duel had begun. Vera moved first. A graceful blur of speed, she spun and swept her leg at Jace. But he ducked. He rolled sideways, letting her momentum pass by. She didn't stop. She attacked against sharp hands, fast strikes, silent steps, but Jace blocked with open palms. Never striking back, he was studying her, learning her rhythm, and she felt it. "You won't land a blow if you stay afraid," she hissed. "I'm not afraid," Jace replied calmly. "I'm just not here to hurt you." That made her pause only. For half a second, but it was enough. Jace stepped inside her guard and gently pushed her off balance. She stumbled backward, and the arena lights flickered in surprise. In Zarkali culture, losing balance meant losing control. The watching nobles on her ship would whisper about it. For days, Virea's pride flared. She attacked again. Harder this time, faster, more brutal. More wild, Jace dodged left, right, back, but she clipped his shoulder with a spinning elbow. He slid across the energy tiles, breathing hard, his arm. Spark suit damage, but he stood up again, smiling slightly. "You're strong," he said, "but not because you scare people." She scowled. "That's how I keep order." Jace shook his head. "No, that's how you keep people silent." She rushed him again, but this time, he didn't move. He caught her wrist, turned, and brought her down with a soft arc of motion. She hit the tile, stunned but unhurt. Jace released her instantly and stepped back. Vera lay there for a moment, looking up at Earth. The blue planet rotated slowly above. Her head, she had seen so many worlds, but this one. This one had fought back without hate. Jace offered his hand. Again, she stared at it and looked into his eyes. "Why do you not finish it?" she asked, voice low. "Because I don't want to defeat you," he said. "I want you to see us." Clearly, her fingers trembled. Then, slowly, she took his hand. The arena lights turned blue. Signaling end of duel, there was no winner or loser, but everyone watching knew something had changed. The Zarkali guards on the ship stood silent. Unsure, the Earth officials stared at the screens with wide eyes. Jace had not just survived, he had made Virea choose peace. Back on the viewing deck, Virea stood alone, watching a replay of the fight. Her thoughts were quiet. Her heart, something alien and old, felt unsure for the first time in decades. She touched her fingers, remembering the warmth of his hand. It hadn't been weakness. It had been strength. She whispered into the empty room. "Maybe I was wrong." The Sky Garden still floated silently above Earth, but the air had changed. The duel was over. The crowd had gone quiet, and yet the moment still hung like a frozen breath in space. Ambassador Varia stood at the edge of the platform, her silver suit scratched, her pride shaken. She stared down at Earth, its blue surface glowing beneath her feet, but her mind was far from calm. She had been touched. Not just physically, but in a deeper way by a human's choice. Captain Jace had won without violence. He had offered her something no other being ever had: mercy without weakness. Behind her, Jace stood quietly. He didn't cheer, didn't gloat. He waited, patient, steady. As if he knew the silence wasn't the end, but the beginning of something bigger. Virea turned slowly to face him. Her guards were watching from the ship above. Earth leaders waited on the broadcast screen, but none of it mattered now. She walked toward Jace, each step slow, controlled, heavy. When she finally stood before him, she spoke in a soft voice. "Do you know what happens next?" Jace nodded. "Yes. You return to your ship," he said, "and Earth returns to peace." She studied his face, trying to find a lie, but there was only honesty. Only the truth she had not seen in centuries. She could have ordered her guards to attack. She could have erased the duel from her records. But instead, she took a step closer, before the entire galaxy. She did something no Zarkali leader had ever done. She bowed her head, just a little, just enough. The humans watching gasped. Jace blinked, unsure if it was real. "I acknowledge your courage," she said, "and your planet's spirit." Jace didn't smile. He just nodded with respect, and that was enough. Back on Earth, the news exploded. The alien who bowed, the duel that changed everything. People cried, cheered, and danced in the streets. but Jace stayed quiet. He knew this victory was not the end, but the start of something fragile. Later, in her private chamber aboard the Zarkali ship, Viria stood in silence. Her guards asked if she wanted revenge. She shook her head. No, she said, he didn't. Embarrass me. One young Zarkali warrior asked carefully. Then what did he do, my lady? Viria looked up at the stars, he reminded me, she said. Who I used to be that night. She did something even stranger. She sent a private message to Earth's Council requesting a 101 meeting with Jason O cameras. No weapons, no audience. Inside the meeting room the next day, she entered quietly. Jace was already there. Sipping warm tea, she sat across from him. No guards, no armor, only silence between them. I had forgotten what respect feels like, she said, looking at her hands. Jace waited, letting her speak. In my world, we use fear. She added, it works fast, but it leaves rot behind. I saw that, Jace replied softly. And I saw something better in you, her eyes lifted slowly for a moment, she said. I almost asked you to kill me on that platform, Jace. Looked surprised, but didn't interrupt. I thought losing meant death, she continued. But it didn't, he leaned forward, voice calm. No, he said. Sometimes losing is just learning. Virea was silent again, but this time it wasn't pride. It was something more human, reflection. She placed a small device on the table, glowing blue. What's this? Jace asked. A gift, she said. A copy of Zarkali, ancient law. It includes old treaties, sacred codes, and knowledge never shared before. Jace stared at it, stunned. This is worth more than gold, he whispered. I know, she said, and I trust you'll use it with care. They sat in silence for a few more minutes, two beings from two worlds, no longer enemies, no longer strangers, and outside, beyond the glass walls, Earth and stars spun together in peace, for the first time in ages. The untouchable diplomat had fallen silent, not in defeat, but in understanding. Asterisk, the stars outside the window shimmered like ice crystals. Virea sat alone in her private chamber aboard the golden ship. The lights were low and the walls pulsed, with quiet energy, but inside her heart. Something strange stirred a silence that was not empty. It was the weight of truth, ready to be spoken for years. She had ruled with strength, spoken with sharp words, and never shown weakness. She had traveled across galaxies, silencing empires, collecting tribute, and making planets kneel. But Earth had shown her something she hadn't felt in centuries: resistance without hatred. And one man had stood where thousands would have fallen. That night she requested a private audience with Captain Jace. No translators, no guards, no politics. Just a room, 2 chairs, and the soft hum of space beyond the glass. Jace entered quietly. No armor, no formal clothes. Just a simple uniform and a tired but kind face. You called for me, he said. She nodded slowly. Yes, I have something to tell you. He sat down across from her. Patient as always, she studied his eyes, those strange, honest human eyes. Then she spoke, not like a ruler, but like a person who had carried a burden for too long. My empire is dying, she whispered. Jace didn't flinch, but his eyes grew serious. What do you mean? He asked gently. Our stars are burning out, she said. Our resources are drying. Our young no longer follow the old ways. She looked down at her hands. We look strong on the outside, but inside, we're crumbling. Jace leaned forward, listening without judgment. I came here to demand tribute, she continued. But not because I wanted to. I was ordered to. Jace raised an eyebrow. Ordered. By whom? She met his gaze again, this time with a shadow behind her voice. By the elders, she said. The council that controls what's left of our central worlds. They sent me here not to negotiate, but to break Earth before it could rise. Jace clenched his jaw, his fists tightening slightly. So they see us as a threat. He said. Yes, Vera replied. Because Earth has something we lost long ago, hope. The silence between them deepened. He looked at her not with anger, but understanding. You didn't want to follow their plan? He said softly. No, she replied, but I was. Bound by duty, Jace leaned back, exhaling slowly. And then you met me. She nodded, her voice shaking slightly. You didn't fight to win, Jace, she said. You fought to wake me up. She stood and walked to the window. Staring at Earth glowing below, you reminded me of what we once were. I had forgotten what it means to serve people instead of ruling them. Jace joined her at the glass, side by side. Why are you telling me this now? He asked. Because I trust you, she said, and because I need your help. He turned to her, surprised. What kind of help? She looked at him with eyes no longer cold. I want to stop the elders, she said. But I can't do it alone. You have a voice they don't control, she added, and Earth has something my people still fear: unity. Jace paused, letting her words sink in. Are you asking for an alliance? She nodded slowly. Not between governments, she said, but between us, a partnership. Jace looked out the window, then back at her. You stood above us once, he said. Now you're asking to stand beside us. That takes strength. She didn't smile, but something softened in her face. I'm tired of pretending I'm untouchable, she whispered, and you're the first person who ever made me feel. Seeing Jace extended his hand, just like he had on the dual platform. No threats, he said, no fear, just truth. She looked at his hand, then placed hers gently in his, and in that moment, something greater than power passed. Between them, it was trust, respect, and something that could change entire worlds. Far above the spinning planet, in a chamber full of silence, the untouchable diplomat made her final decision. She would not destroy Earth, she would save her. People with Earth beside her, and at the center of it all, stood one human who had said no, not to challenge her pride, but to remind her of her soul. The skies above Earth had never been so clear. The golden ship of the Zarkali still floated above the capital, but the world no longer feared it. Now it was a symbol of something new. Something no one had expected, peace forged from pride, Captain. Jace Marlowe stood on the balcony of the United Earth Hall. Below him, thousands had gathered. Humans of every kind stood shoulder to shoulder, looking up at the ship once called a threat. And soon, a voice echoed across every screen. Every speaker, every device on Earth. I am Ambassador Vera of the Zarkali Empire, she said. Her voice was steady, calm, and different. Gone was the cold sharpness. Now it carried warmth. I once came to demand, she said, but Earth gave me something. I didn't expect: truth. The human you call Jace Marlowe reminded me that strength is not domination. It is the courage to listen. In the hall behind him, Jace listened in silence. He hadn't dressed in medals or awards. Just a plain black jacket and the patch of his old space unit. Virea continued. I speak today not as a ruler above Earth, but as an equal, and I propose an alliance of values, not just trade. Not just defense, but unity. Cheers erupted across the plaza. Some cried, some shouted, some just stood in awe. The untouchable had not only bent, but stood, side by side. Later that evening, Jace boarded her ship once more. This time not as a challenger, but as a guest of honor. Vera met him at the airlock with no guards, no weapons, and no distance. You kept your promise, she said. Let the truth speak louder than fear. Jace smiled gently. And you let your pride become something greater. They walked the corridor side by side. No one else followed. Just two beings who had once stood on opposite sides of power. They reached the Star Observatory, a wide-open room with transparent walls that looked out into space. The stars stretched forever, and somewhere out there, her empire waited, still ruled by old fear. Vera sat on the soft bench beside him. I will return soon, she said, and I will face the elders. But I won't return as their puppet. I'll return as myself. Jace nodded. And you'll have Earth behind you. She looked at him, her voice quiet. They will try to strip my title, she said, maybe even my name. But they can't take what I've become. Jace turned to her. They can't take your choice, he said, or your truth. There was a long pause. Then Vera asked a question she had never dared ask anyone. Will you come with me? Heart skipped to your homeworld. Yes, she said, Not as a warrior, not as a soldier, but as the one voice they will listen to. Because you are the only one who ever told me no. He looked into her eyes, violet and glowing, but no longer cold, and he saw not an alien ruler, but a woman who had found herself again. He nodded slowly. "I'll go," he said. She didn't smile with her lips, but her shoulders relaxed, her breath deepened. That was all the smile he needed. In the days that followed, the alliance was signed. A new chapter began. Not with fire or war, but with two hands, one human and one Zarkali. Joined together, the galaxy took notice. Other species watched with surprise, curiosity, even hope. Because if the untouchable could be reached, then maybe peace was not just a dream. And on the day Jace left Earth to follow Viraya into the stars, people lined the streets, waving not to a soldier, but to the man who taught the universe that pride doesn't have to be power. It can be partnership. It can be love. And as the golden ship disappeared into the sky, Earth knew one truth would be remembered across the stars forever. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can say is no.